I'm Pete Stavridis with Up and Ready Flight Support. I'm here at Warbirds of Delaware West, and today we're going to talk about the L-29 Super Delfin. Now, the aircraft behind me is essentially the Czech Republic's first crack at a jet trainer. Designed in the late 50s, went into service in the early 60s, and in its stock form, it was a very robust, reliable aircraft, but in reality, it was underpowered. Warbirds of Delaware has since installed numerous engine modifications to this airframe. The current airframe behind me, Race 77, is the fastest aircraft to ever race at the Reno air races with a top speed of 544 miles per hour. Now, the way they did this was to take a Rolls-Royce Viper engine and install it into the airframe. Subsequently, they've engineered an engine mount for the JT12 or JT60 engine, putting out even more power, a more reliable engine. We'll talk about the engine here in a moment. But today I'd like to do a general overview of this airplane and why it's such a value to the private sector and as a warbird operator in general. We'll start at the front and work our way back. General aircraft characteristics, again, it's the predecessor to the L-39, so it's very robustly built. The aircraft can be operated in austere conditions, grass, gravel, and sand is what the manual says. The flight characteristics are amazing. Rotation speed of about 90 knots, final approach speed of about 100 knots. It stalls clean at 80 knots, dirty at about 75. All push-pull tubes for flight controls, basic systems, hydraulically actuated landing gear and speed brakes. It uses pneumatic air pressure for the brakes. We'll take a look at all those things as we do an aircraft walk-around. One of the great things about this aircraft, as I mentioned earlier, was its simplified construction. As you see here, the landing gear, very robust trailing link configuration. One of the, I wouldn't call it disadvantages, but one of the less desirable characteristics of the aircraft is that it uses pneumatic pressure to actuate the drum brake system. There is no anti-skid brake like we have on the L-39. Because of this, a fair amount of training is involved on landing this airplane without locking a main tire. It is susceptible to blowing a tire if the brakes are applied too soon or too aggressively. But with proper training like we do at Up and Ready, it's easily mitigated. Parts for this aircraft and serviceability. I get a lot of phone calls about getting into a cost-effective warbird for a low amount of money. And my response is always to consider this aircraft. Let's talk a little bit about acquisition and owning. One of these aircraft in its stock configuration can be had for as little as $50,000. Now that airframe in stock configuration is very underpowered and there's some better options, which is why I'm here with Warbirds of Delaware. Now their configuration, you can get into an airplane like this, and I'm talking very rough numbers, for somewhere around $200,000. That includes the airframe, the engine, and the conversion, a flyaway airframe. We'll talk performance numbers in a little bit. But with that, Warbirds of Delaware has a full parts department to support this aircraft for a very long time. And as we said, this airplane was built to design decades of service. And as we have seen, it has done just that. Let's talk a little bit about the JT12, JT60 engine configuration. They're one and the same, designed in around 57 and went into service in the early 60s. The reason there's two classifications for the engine is one was dedicated for civilian use and one for military use. They're the same engine. Puts out about 3,400 pounds of thrust. The stock airframe put out about 1,800 pounds of thrust. So we're almost doubling the amount of thrust coming out of the back end of this airplane. I'm fortunate enough to race 77 for Warbirds of Delaware, and I have quite a few hours in this airframe, and it is amazing performance-wise. Let's talk a little bit about the engine first. So it's a 9-stage compressor with a 2-stage hot section. It's a turbojet engine, axial flow. Some performance numbers, and again, made by Pratt & Whitney in Canada. And this engine is readily available. Parts are available for it. It can be overhauled at a reasonable amount of money, and it has an exceptionally long time before overhaul. Performance numbers, I'm going to talk very general here. because it kind of depends which dash number of engine you install, and also how heavy is your airplane, and obviously environmental factors. But some general numbers: takeoff roll, 800 feet. Rate of climb, 7,000 feet a minute. Cruise performance. This is where throttle management makes a huge difference. So if you cruise this aircraft at a high power setting, you can get 400 knots plus true airspeed, but you'll be burning somewhere around 180 gallons per hour. The beauty of this configuration is if you pull it back to, say, 290 knots true airspeed, you're burning about 127 gallons per hour, which is very efficient. The engine likes to be up high. By its design, it was used in Sabreliner corporate aircraft. So the higher you get, the better. If you can get up into the 23s, the mid-20s, that's where you'll get some really good performance out of this aircraft. Because of that lower specific fuel consumption, depending on how you have your L-29 outfitted with fuel, whether that be drop tanks, internal fuel, wing fuel, you can get anywhere from 500 to 900 nautical miles of range in this airframe. Let's take a look at how we might outfit our L-29. Given its experimental classification, we have an infinite amount of configurations. Here you'll see dual Garmin G3X displays paired to a Garmin 430, as well as a dedicated Garmin control panel. Many of the original instrumentation was retained for its simplicity and ease of use. Both left and right consoles were fully restored to factory condition. This is a beautiful example of what a little TLC and basic cleanup can do to an L-29. With the addition of the L-29 Super Delfin to the Up and Ready fleet, we're proud to offer both initial, basic, and advanced formation training. Paired with the L-39 Albatross, these two aircraft in tandem provide an excellent opportunity for a variety of formation training. I'd like to thank Aaron Hogue of Hogue Knives for his participation in filming this video. Please check them out at hogueknives.com. The Pratt & Whitney equipped L-29, paired with modern avionics, creates a very impressive aircraft with incredible performance both in the high and low altitude spectrums. In summary, the L-29 is a robust and extremely simple aircraft to own and operate. Let's talk a little bit about how we might get one of these aircraft or get training in one of these aircraft. So, Warbirds of Delaware, whose link I'll provide at the end of this video, can be contacted, and the details of them building an aircraft for you can be discussed. We're currently at their West Coast facility, where we have a number of L-29s undergoing the conversion process. Main headquarters are located in Delaware, and they can easily be contacted for further information. As far as training, that's something that I provide at Up and Ready Flight Support, and it's very similar to our L-39 training, which I've previously done a video on. General numbers again, looking at a 4-day course, somewhere around $11,000. Again, these are rough numbers. And it follows a very similar syllabus to our L-39 training. Again, something that can be accomplished in less than a week, and all the requirements remain the same. So 1,000 hours of total time, 500 hours of PIC time in an aircraft single engine land, and also must hold an instrument rating. So all the requirements remain the same for that. I'd love to hear from you. Please contact me at Up and Ready Flight.